Hey everyone, I just picked this up. Now, this is a book I read in my 20s. Ayn Rand, Philosophy, Who Needs It? Ayn Rand is the founder of Objectivism, which is a branch of philosophy, and she says it's the philosophy for life on the planet Earth, which is interesting. And it's really interesting because in my 20s, I was just saying to a couple of people, good friends of mine, that my 20s were an amazing decade. And I read this in my 20s. Now, why is that relevant? Because it all kind of comes together. Yesterday, I was watching this speech. Well, I've seen it before. It's one that my brother sent me, and it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger speech. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, no introduction needed, massively successful in all the areas he's ever entered. Um, he starts off by saying the first rule of success is you have to have a vision. And I was sitting there thinking, what is my vision? I had one in my 20s. And funnily enough, I wrote an article just last week, and it was about three questions I've always used to get through crises. And the first one is, where am I? Where do I want to go? How am I going to get there? Now, the second question in there, where do I want to go, is all about a vision. You have to decide where you want to be, what you want to be doing. And then the third question, how are you going to get there? That's sort of the tail end of the vision. I had that in my 20s, and my 20s were fantastic. But getting back to the book, I also read this in my 20s. And I was sitting there and I watched the first couple of minutes of that video. And I thought, oh my God, what is my vision? Where do I want to be? And then, at that point, I thought, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm absolutely certain it's not doing what I'm doing right now, at that moment, what I was doing. It was a wake-up call for me. It was a massive wake-up call for me. Back to the book. The first part of the book, Philosophy, Who Needs It? That's actually the first speech. It's a transcript of a speech she gave to West Point graduates in the 1970s sometime. She became very famous when she wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged, which became a bestseller in the 1960s. Philosophy, as she defines it, the philosophy of life on Earth, she talks about the different branches of it, but she defines it essentially as thinking about, knowing, and choosing your own ideas. And it just hit me like a sledgehammer. It was like a truck. It was, unless you decide your own ideas, unless you decide what you're going to believe and what your standards are, with some critical analysis, you don't just decide, yeah, I'm going to believe that we're actually all aliens and we're all actually lizards and blah, 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 and all that bullshit. You have to think, you have to use your brain. Otherwise, it will be filled up with shit, and it will be run subconsciously. She hates Kant, by the way, Immanuel Kant, and she also mentions Skinner, who she says is a follower of Kant, and she says there's articles on that later on. The consequences, this is from an introduction, actually, which was written in 1982, the consequences of not deciding what is reason. Her whole thing, objectivism, is about reason. If you don't use reason and you don't use logic, then what happens is you can be led by anything, you can believe anything. And then one of the very interesting points made in the introduction is, why are there so few people with a good philosophy in positions of power? And I thought, wow, this is as relevant today, probably more relevant today than any time. And look at the people we've got running the UK. Boris Johnson. I believe in I don't believe in leaving the euro. Oh yes, I do, because that can make me prime minister. Fuck you lot. I just want to rise to the top. And there are no people who believe, yeah, but who've told me that's the kind of thing you want to hear from a leader. Someone who, no, we don't want a leader who can't be faithful to anyone, who will tread on anyone just to get what they want. And look at the country's state now, coronavirus deaths. There are people out there who believe coronavirus is a scam. Oh, really? It's a scam. So what's killing all these people? Who's benefiting from this scam? Define your own philosophy. Use your brain. I nearly swore there. I swear a bit sometimes. I do apologize. My wife was saying to me yesterday when I read her an excerpt from this book, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And she said, oh, all a bit wordy for me. I don't like philosophy. Everybody's got a subconscious philosophy, which is how they think, what they believe. But if it's subconscious and you're not controlling it, you can be led by anyone. Now, how do you think people like Bojo the fucking clown get into power? Because they're a bit smarter than the other people. They've taken enough effort to, I know, if I plaster £350 million, a month for the NHS, which is just something I made out with my, butt sucker of a fucking, whatever you want to call it, Dominic Cummings telling me what to do, then great. Yeah, they'll all believe that, and I'll get into power. Ooh, good. think critically, think, use your brain. You've got one. It's in here. You can see I'm getting quite worked up about this. I can't wait to read the rest of the book. I've only actually read the introduction because I read this in my 20s, and in my 20s I know I was pretty headstrong, but I essentially, it was the best time of my life. I got what I wanted, I did what I wanted, I was stable, I was successful. It all starts in here. And right now, with the political landscape that I've brushed over, the West is going like this. I mean, one of the things that she talks about is objectivism is great because it's what the great country of the United States, the greatest country in the world, she calls it, the only country ever founded on a moral and ethical outlook. And maybe that was true in the 60s, but what's becoming clear now is basically the states, like a lot of countries, unfortunately, a large part of its power comes from exploitation of slavery in their case. If you hear what happened in what was it called? Columbus's troops found Hispania. It's one of the Haiti, I think it is. When they arrived, they all wrote about what lovely people the natives are, how they never turn to violence, how welcoming they are. Anyway, a year later, they'd killed, murdered, decimated about 95% of the population. All the diaries they kept of how they tortured these savages were banned and burned. And now the country's still fucked up. Well, not fucked up, but suffering is a consequence of that. So that was imperialism. Ayn Rand talks about how I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, because she talks about how people think imperialism is an evil thing. Well, the way it's being revealed now as to what happened, how did the UK become so powerful? How did America become? Yeah, it's damn evil, But the idea is it's based on striving to be the best you can be, striving for truth, thinking critically. If there were less stupid people, and not stupid people, but people who actually engage their brains, how much better off would we be as a planet? See, that becomes dangerous because then you have all these idiots on YouTube, people who treat YouTube like a bloody news channel. Come on, guys, and oh no, I'm using my own brain. I believe the truth. Yeah, but that truth is a pile of sawdust and pig shit, and this truth has some evidence in reality, in the real people who go on about, 9/11 was a scam. It was a hoax. I don't know anyone who died in 9/11. That's because you live on the other side of the fucking planet. Sorry, I'm getting quite worked up about this. This is really good. I'm reading it again. I found it in my sister's bookshelf. She's got a habit, and her son's got a habit of stealing my books. Well, not stealing, books should be passed around, knowledge should be shared. But I'm definitely reading this one again, and this is just a review running into bloody hell 7 minutes 45 seconds of just about that much of it. So there's more. There'll probably be more reviews, but I hope you enjoyed that. And guess what? I recommend this book.